Hey guys, welcome to this very special episode of TFL Live on TFL Now. Andre and I just got back from the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas, where we were one of 3 media outlets to actually get hands-on with the new 1500 Ram Revolution or Ram Rev. Who are the other people who got their hands on it, Andre?
Yeah, we were very fortunate. So thanks to the team at Ram. There was Motor Trend.
Yep.
And there's also Redline Reviews, Sofian, our friend Sofian.
Yep. So in this live show, we're going to answer all of your questions because, it's not that often that a new 1500 full-size truck comes out, let alone an electric full-size truck. And since we did get to spend a lot of time with it, we will not only answer your questions, but we will also talk about what the truck is and what things we actually think will make it into production, because it was a concept, right?
Yeah, and also I want to thank the team at Ram because the entire team was there. It was pretty late in the evening in Vegas.
But it was like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Exterior designers, interior designers, the entire team was there to help us answer our questions, so we have a lot of information for you. And we also got to sit in it, which is rare for a concept vehicle, right?
Yeah, it is very rare. And so I think in this video, we're going to kind of give you our thoughts about it. We're going to answer your questions. If you're curious as to what it looks like, head on over to All TFL, where we published the video showing it. That video blew up, Andre. I think it was on trending, actually, wasn't it?
It was number 12 on YouTube trending, which is, I think, its highest TFL video got ever.
Yeah, so thanks to you guys for watching it. And like I say, alltfl.com, you can see, or it's on our truck website as well. And let's start with what the truck looks like, right? Because basically what they created was a chopped and channeled pickup truck, right? It was much lower than typical.
Yeah, and actually I was speaking also to Mike Koval, the CEO of Ram Brand North America, and he made an interesting comment when I was talking to him. He said manufacturers tend not to do concept trucks anymore or concept vehicles anymore. So they wanted to kind of play up that concept, right? And Ralph Giles is the chief designer for Stellantis. And you talked to Ralph as well, right?
I did, yeah. Mm-hmm.
They really wanted to kind of exaggerate that truck, make it interesting, and I think they did that.
Yeah, and so proportionally, it's kind of got a long cab, a short hood, and then of course it's got that midgate, so it's got a long bed as well. And they took kind of the space that normally would be in the front of the truck and moved it to the middle of the truck and to the end of the truck. Now, one of the reasons I think that they did that was because, let's face it, guys, the current state of full-size and heavy-duty trucks is that they're so tall and that the hood is so long, it's hard to see over the hood, right, when you're driving it. And now when you basically lower the roof line, you're making that problem worse.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there was a comment on that video that was very popular. Somebody said, the wheels are getting larger, the cabs are getting bigger, and the beds are getting smaller. But we'll address all those comments. And there's another one, actually 2 here, one from Flex. Flex says, was the range extender confirmed?
No, so they didn't talk about the range extender at all. This is a pure EV truck. So let's kind of go over some of the features of the truck. And unfortunately, I think it would have been smart on Ram's part to actually announce the range extender or maybe bring it out first, but they didn't. So we're going to talk about what is instead of what we don't know.
What was announced.
What was announced, what we can talk about versus what is being speculated about. So I'm going to say right away, I don't think that this kind of chop and channel look is going to make it into production, Andre. I think the truck is going to have a much more traditional proportion because I just think that it's cool looking, but it's not practical.
Well, so I'm just almost 6'3", right? And some of you commented when I got into the front seat, some of you said, Andre, you look uncomfortable. I think part of the reason was because the front seat was pushed all the way forward because they were trying to demo the space. Right? Even though I got in there, but you said I didn't have enough headroom.
Yeah.
So yes, in the production truck, I imagine the cab profile might be a little bit different, right? But they still want to make it aerodynamic. It's an electric vehicle. It needs to be efficient no matter what actually powers it. So I think that shape, that's my opinion, will mostly be the same, except that it's going to be more real.
So the other thing that immediately strikes you when you walk up to the truck, especially when you open it up, is that it has suicide doors. And I love suicide doors in terms of egress and getting in and out of the truck because it makes it much easier. It opens up the whole space. You can get the whole family in. And that kind of nicely flows into the second thing that's unique about this truck. It has these, like, I think they called it the Ram oh gosh, Ram guides or something where you can
The
actually
rail system?
the rail system, Ram rail, something like that,
Yeah.
where you can actually take the seats, and there are now 3 rows of seats,
Yeah.
right? Where you can actually take them and move them up and down, backward and forward. And third row is actually interesting. There are these little jump seats that are actually attached to the midgate that kind of come out. So instead of having 2 rows of seating, you've got potentially 3 rows or 6 passenger seating in this truck. Now, funny thing happened to me while I was talking to Ralph Giles, right?
Yes.
I kind of leaned down the door,
Uh-huh.
and that door was you shouldn't lean on it. It started to kind of move back and
Teeter.
forth. Yeah, because those hinges on those doors, I think they were like 2 inches, because you've got these massive and very heavy suicide doors. So if I were a betting man, Andre, I would say the suicide doors are not going to make it into production.
Well, here's the thing. I was also talking with Tony. Tony purchased my F-150 hybrid, so my truck is gone. So Tony owns it. And Tony said, Andre, how are you going to open the suicide door in a Walmart parking lot? You're going to swing it open and it's going to hit, the vehicle next to you. Or in your garage, you're going to swing it open.
So in case you don't know, right, most truck doors open like this.
Sure.
Suicide doors open like that.
Yes.
And they're very long, and there's no B pillar, basically.
Right. And also, so extended cab trucks like the Nissan Titan King Cab, like the Ford F-150 extended cabs, they have little suicide doors already. That's happening now. But even having a small door is already problematic, right? In tight spaces around trucks. So having a giant suicide door opening, I don't think that's going to make it.
Yeah, and I'm also going to be a little hesitant about the rail system, right? Where you actually can move, because when you have rails, that means that you then have to take the seat belt and actually incorporate it into the seat, which is cool, right? You can have a seat belt that's part of the seat, but it's expensive, and I think from a crashing standpoint, it's a Monday, Andrew. I'm having a hard time today.
That's okay. Did you have your coffee this morning?
I didn't have my coffee. I don't drink coffee, but I didn't have my tea. From a crash test standpoint of view, I think rails are going to be problematic and expensive.
But I love that concept, dude.
I hope they build it. I'm not trying. I feel like I'm throwing water on these cool ideas.
Well, here's the whole concept, and Ram was thinking out of box here, because you can take the front passenger seat, for example, spin it 180 degrees, mount it back in the rail system, and now the front passenger is facing the rear passengers. So you have like this, mobile lounge, so to speak, inside your truck.
And let's face it, we've seen this before.
Yes.
I think we've seen it in concept vehicles before, but I've never seen it actually make production. So as much as I would love to see that rail system in place, I worry that from a crash test standpoint and from expense standpoint, it's just not going to make it practical. Now, the one thing I think that will make it is, of course, it has a frunk, so it'll have a frunk.
Yeah.
But the frunk has a pass-through, and Ram says that you could actually fit an 18-foot piece of
something,
lumber or metal or piping into the truck because of that pass-through. And I think, that is something that is going to make it into production.
Yeah, and we have a question from Casey. Casey's asking, how much horsepower does this truck have? They didn't specify horsepower.
But they did say something. They were really specific about they want to be best-in-class range, best-in-class charging, best-in-class horsepower, best-in-class towing. Basically, they put a lot of chips on the table. We'll see how many of those actually, end up being on the table when it's said and done. But if it's best-in-class towing, we can speculate on that. So right now, best-in-class would be more than a Ford Lightning, which tows, 10,000?
Right, 10,000 for the Lightning, 11,000 for the Rivian truck.
Yeah.
So the Rivian R1T is actually currently the king of electric truck towing. I know Chevrolet said their Silverado EV will eventually tow 20,000 pounds, but we haven't seen that version of the Chevrolet yet.
More than 12,000.
So it has to be more than 11 at least, but we'll see how far they can push it. They're calling it light duty. So Mike Koval went on stage at CES and he said Ram 1500 battery electric vehicle, but he said 1500. So they're targeting the full-size segment, not the heavy-duty segment with this truck.
And we can speculate on some things. So, for instance, they said that it is going to have a 350-volt architecture like the Hummer EV and like the Silverado, which means it'll charge quicker. We're guessing it'll have a similar size battery to the Silverado or the Hummer EV, so around 200 kilowatt hours would be a fair guess, I think. More than the Ford Lightning. The Ford Lightning, in my opinion, we've owned one, is a little under-batteried.
Yeah, the Ford Lightning is 134 kilowatt hours approximately. But when you look at the size of the Hummer or the Silverado, their frame rails are really big. They're about that tall because they're stacking 2 levels of batteries in there. I didn't get that sense from the Ram, so the floor didn't seem quite as deep in the Ram when I was there in person. So it's hard to say exactly what battery will be. But they talked about like next generation technologies, right? They mentioned solid state batteries in their presentation.
Yeah, I've heard that so much now.
But that's still several years in the future. I don't think that can come out next year.
That has been several years in the future for the last several years in the future.
I know. So, but the promise of solid state batteries is they're more dense. There's more energy in a small space.
That's not true.
I know you spoke to a CEO of a local company, but
there's a company that Ford invested in and BMW invested in.
Yes.
So this is not some small company.
Okay.
And he said the only advantage to solid-state batteries, at least the technology that he's working on, is that they don't have catastrophic failure and they don't have that reaction where they catch fire. But there's no more density, there's no less weight, there's no more durability. They're just much safer, so that if you puncture them, they won't burn your truck down. I'm not saying but to me that feels real.
That doesn't sound the promise I was sold.
Well, that feels real, but that feels real to me.
I'm really upset by that.
It would be like, remember when computers first came out, and like my first Mac was 128K, and then it went to 512K, and then memory got better and better and better. But there was never any like new technology that came along that changed it. It was this incremental, every year, more and more memory in less and less space, until eventually, our watch now, this watch has more computing power than, let's say, a computer from 1970, a room-sized computer. And I think that's what's going to happen with batteries. They're incrementally every year going to get better. I would not hold my breath for some revolutionary solid-state battery that's going to be the size of a double D cell, right? Right, that's going to power your truck for
years
for 250 miles. So I don't see it.
Carlos Tavares, the CEO of Stellantis, part of their presentation at CES, they were up there saying we're going to get batteries more dense. They didn't say exactly which technologies they were using, but they said the batteries will be the same size, they'll have more energy, you'll be able to go further, and they'll reinvest the payload. They talked about this, making the batteries way less, so the payload goes to the truck, not to the battery.
So let me ask you this, okay? If that is the case, right, and Tesla has been around how long now?
11, 12 years.
Right. Why haven't they implemented those batteries? They're the most electrically invested brand of all. Why are they still using, traditional batteries that they were using 10 years ago? Basically the same battery. They have changed the chemistry somewhat, but the improvement from a 2010 Tesla Model S to current Model S isn't that great. And then if you want to look at, what is real versus what is vaporware, look at the Lucid, right, which has better technology, at least battery tech, than Tesla, because you can get up to 500 miles on it. But that's not because it's got any kind of better batteries. There's no solid state battery in a Lucid. It's because the motors are more efficient, the software is more efficient, right? It's improvements in those things and not this magic. So I'm kind of over the solid state battery thing. I've been sold that for the last 10 years. I don't believe it anymore. Anyway, sorry guys, I went on a tangent.
Okay, there's a question from Matt Taylor.
Yes.
Matt says, wouldn't the pass-through only work if the center console was removed? So a couple comments here.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, on the concept truck, when you kneel down and you look through the front pass-through in the front towards the back of the truck, the console was kind of floating. So the console actually has an opening inside of it.
Yeah, it's like where your feet would be. It's not where the console is.
So it's like this coffee table where the console was kind of passed through.
And it's a small hole. It's maybe like the size of a bread basket. A loaf of bread, maybe. That's how big it was.
You mean my buchanka could fit through it?
No, a loaf of bread. That's the size of the pass-through.
Why couldn't they make it bigger? That's also upsetting.
Well, because you've got like controls.
I know there's controls and wiring and
brakes
dash
and accelerator.
Pipes and hoses running through it.
It's like a hole like this big. So maybe if you have a 2x18,
but
you could throw it through there.
But the concept is that the console is removable.
Yeah.
So that's also the concept. Or you can shift it back and forth, which is quite interesting. We have a $5 donation from Gustavo. Thank you, Gustavo.
Thank you, Gustavo.
Keep up the great work, guys. Well, thank you for supporting us.
Yeah, so let's keep going through some of the other concepts, because this truck is loaded with kind of cool ideas.
So can I review it really quick?
Yeah, of course.
So according to us, our perception, suicide doors, no-go, right? Glass roof, should we talk about that next?
Photochromatic glass roof.
Yes, I would say that's a no-go.
Especially how fancy it is. Now, Mercedes has done this in the previous, actually, SL, where basically, if you've been on some planes have it too. If you've been on a plane, right, you can change the amount of light that comes in. This has been
through
around a
the
while.
glass.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so Ram had a fancy version of this. Porsche actually does it too. They have like this segmented roof where it can actually, and I did a video on this, where it can actually go from opaque to clear. I think it's expensive technology. It might make it into, I don't know, whatever their premium brand is going to be if they stick with their current, branding. It won't be in the Bighorn, let's put it that way.
Yeah, the limited. Ram calls it limited.
It might, but
yeah.
I highly doubt it. I think it's a lot cheaper just to have a giant. I think it'll have a glass roof, but it might just have a traditional.
Well, somebody
shade.
made a comment that on the concept, the glass portion of the roof went into the windshield.
Yeah.
It was almost connecting one piece of glass to the next. And somebody made a comment, what if you get a rock chip? Do you have to replace the roof? That's an interesting comment. So I'm sure in production, something will be done.
In a Tesla, you can crack the roof and you have to replace it.
In the Tesla Model X, right? Where the roof...
Not the X. I mean, that yeah. So
well,
that
in
one
the
you have to
X,
replace
you
the
have
whole
a
thing.
continuous glass almost.
Right, but it runs into metal. And then you have the I was going to say
The
gull
doors.
wing, but they're Falcon wing doors. But yeah, in a Tesla Model 3, which has a glass roof, or Model S, which has a glass roof, those crack and you have to replace the roof.
So yeah, that's a great point, great question. So the glass roof, I'm not sure if it's going to make it to production in the concept form.
How about the midgate?
I say yes.
I say yes too, because Chevy's doing it. I think it would be crazy if Ram didn't do it. And I also think those jump seats, I heard a little inside chatter at CES, Andre, that said the little jump seats are going to make it into production. So the way it works, imagine that you have a regular midgate, so it's basically a wall where the rear window would be. The window comes down, right, and then the little part opens up. And then where that little part opens up, there are these two little jump seats that fold down, and that's how that would work. And I think that makes sense. Why not? Just throw some seatbelts on it, and you got yourself a very upright third row.
You know what it looks like to me is like trucks from about 15 years ago.
Yes.
Had those mid jump seats in the back.
Or right? Like on planes, like where the flight attendants have to sit.
Yeah, that's kind of what it looks like. And it's usable. I think it could be really cool if they kept it.
Yeah.
I have another comment not from the live show, but from previous. We talked about follow me mode.
Yes.
So they have this crazy follow me mode where the truck is supposed to recognize your command from the outside.
It follows you like a dog on a leash.
And you say, follow me, and you start walking away, and the truck starts following you.
And we came up with one use case scenario for that, which I think is actually great, and that is when you're coming home from the pub.
Wow. We don't recommend that.
You don't want to drive, but then the truck kind of... Can the truck get pulled over and get a ticket even though you're walking?
You can get a DUI on a bicycle, I know that.
Yeah, but you're walking and the truck's kind of just stumbling behind you.
Yeah, that's true. But our viewer came up with an ingenious use case.
Let's hear it, yeah.
Going through a gate at your ranch. You open up your ranch, like we always do at Tumbleweed Ranch, and you say, hey, truck, follow me. And you walk through the gate, and then you lock the gate. I think that's cool.
All right, why wouldn't you just pull up, clicker, drive through, clicker?
Ours doesn't do that.
Yeah, it does.
Our gate doesn't have a clicker.
Yeah, it does.
Does it?
Of course.
Why haven't I used it?
Because it's sitting at the ranch. Nobody's using it.
Oh.
Of course, got a clicker.
I thought this was an ingenious solution. Just go through a gate.
I'll give you the clicker.
Okay.
You can use the clicker next time.
Let's see.
All right, let's keep going. How about it had a barn door? Actually, it was a 50-50 barn door and tailgate. I think that's going to make it into production. So it opens up, here's the tailgate, right? So it does that, right? It folds down, or it does that. And I think, they already have a 60-40 barn door, so why not have a 50-50 barn door?
Yeah, totally. Sorry, the pillar wants to communicate with us.
Yeah, I'll puff it up.
So I think the tailgate is cool.
Yeah.
I think it's totally production possible.
Of course.
It's incredible because it provides access. The other feature that I'm not sure is going to make it to production, when you open the barn door tailgate style, they said the floor of the bed actually moves.
Pulls out. So it extends.
So like a drawer system would be.
So normally, go ahead.
No, I think it's a really cool feature, but that floor has to accommodate a lot of weight. If it doesn't accommodate the weight, then it's useless, basically.
Yeah, normally the way that would work, obviously, you would put down the tailgate, and then you would have some kind of a device or a divider that would flip forward, right? And you could extend it if you wanted to load a longer motorcycle, or maybe some more, lumber so that it wouldn't spill out of it. I think that's a much cheaper and easier solution that exists already. I don't know if it'll pull out.
Yeah, but I think it's cool because let's say you're loading something on a pallet. So sometimes it's hard to bring, the forklift as close as you want to, but this could be make a lot of lives a lot easier. We have a donation $5 from Ram Rob.
Hey, Ram.
So, hey Rob or Ram,
Hey,
Ram and
Rob.
Great work, guys. As usual, will you have the Ram execs on for an interview again? Yes, we will.
Yes, on the podcast, right? You
So
interviewed Mike Koval.
we already published the podcast, so go to otfl.com if you haven't seen the podcast or any podcast platform. Truck Podcast, we have Mike Koval's interview in there, but it's only about like 7 or 8 minutes.
You talked to him longer, didn't you?
Yes, but here's what I want to do. When the production version of this truck comes out, which they said would be within the next several months, I want to not only talk to Mike again, but all the designers, right? Because these guys are quite interesting. They're very passionate about this truck. And we know a lot of them as friends. So that's going to be very interesting.
All right, so let's keep going. The other thing I think that will definitely make it into production is best in class 15 degrees of rear wheel steering, Andre. Obviously, rear wheel steering is becoming a thing. Both Mercedes has taken to it. And of course, Hummer EV has it. It's a game changer for a truck, especially if you're trying to make a tight turn or if you're off-roading. That rear steering is a lifesaver, and it really does work. And I think that'll definitely make it into production. And 15 degrees is a lot. So then you're basically talking you can have crab walk mode or whatever Ram decides to call it. You can have a much tighter turning circle, and you can have interesting off-roading experiences where the tail end swings out on a curve that's much too tight for most trucks.
But also ease of use, right? You can park anywhere, go anywhere, turn around in a dead end, anything. I love forward steering on our GMC Hummer. I think it's a super useful feature. I think it will make it. Also, the up and down height adjustable air suspension. They already been doing it for a decade.
Yeah, that's definitely going to make it.
So that's probably going to be there as well. I also love their Ram box, the storage in the sides of the bed system. They didn't show it at the show. But they said they expanded those boxes. They made them about 50% larger, they said. So I cannot wait to see it in person and how it works.
So for those of you who are familiar with the Ram boxes, they're basically built into the side of the bed. And it's great storage. So you can put everything from recovery gear to beer to rifles to, if you're hunting, to, I don't know, anything you can think about it, and keep it locked and secure. And I think that those will get expanded and they will be used. Now, the thing I don't think that's going to make it, Andre, is they got rid of basically the dashboard. No dash.
Yeah. So there's no gauges in front of the steering wheel, right? And they said the steering wheel will at some point retract into the dashboard.
That's not going to make it either.
So, I mean, it might. Several years from now, it might. But when it comes out, they said this is going to be in production next year. So the first version of it, I don't know if the autonomous technologies are advanced to a point where the truck will just drive itself anywhere.
So the steering wheel is square, kind of like, who does a square steering wheel? It's not like a Tesla yoke because the yoke has nothing on top. But there's a company.
Well, it's kind of like a flat top, flat bottom.
Yeah,
so
there's
it's very sporty.
Yeah, there's a company that does that, and I forget who it is. Anyway, I think that'll definitely make it into production. But probably what won't make it into production is not having a dashboard in front of you. You may be wondering, well, how do you see how fast you're going, or see the revolutions, or whatever you want to look at? It's a heads-up display, and the problem with heads-up display for me is I wear polarized sunglasses, and it just disappears. So I think that there will be a tradition. I think you're going to have a square steering wheel that does not retract with, at some point, a gauge cluster in front of you.
But they did talk about the dual screens in the middle. Those are larger than before. So about 14.2 inches in diagonal.
And they're movable. So the top one actually comes out, and you can use it as a tablet. So you could put it.
The bottom one comes out.
The bottom one comes out.
And the upper one slides up and down. I don't know if that feature will make it. What do you think? The removable tablet. I think it's too finicky. What if, you take it out and the track where it's supposed to go into, your kid spills Cheerios in there, and then the tablet never goes back in?
Look, so I got to be honest, I'm kind of over the center console. I know that that's a Tesla thing, and since Tesla brought that to the marketplace, a lot of companies have copied that design language. I'm kind of over it. I kind of appreciate having a regular instrument cluster in front of me so I can just look down. as opposed to having everything in a central screen. I think it's become passe and kind of overused at this point. So I hope they don't do it.
So I think the screen, obviously in the middle, will be there. But also, a lot of you commented, and actually here in the chat room as well, you guys want to see more physical buttons. Not everything has to be on a digital screen.
And you know who's done a
So-
good job with that, of kind of going in a very similar direction, but yet taking the design aesthetic in a different direction, and that is Jeep, right? With their interiors in the Grand Cherokee or in the Grand Wagoneer. Basically, you have multiple screens and you still have regular controls, and you don't have just one giant or one big, 15-inch screen that controls everything.
So before I get to a couple of my other comments, there is one theme that I think a lot of people, you guys right now in the chat room and also in the other videos said, is expense. Expensive, expensive, expensive. You guys are worried that this truck and other trucks are getting expensive. So for example, Cole Spolaric says, soon we'll have 10-year loans on our trucks. And also, there's another comment about it being expensive.
Look, I think you guys are 100% on point with that. I mean, I remember sitting around here 5 years ago, kind of scratching my head with you, wondering when we were going to see the first $100,000 truck, and now I'm wondering when we're going to see the first $150,000 truck. Yeah. Let's face it, the Lightning has increased last year by 17,000. I think, Andre, the base price went from like 39 to 57 for the base Pro Lightning,
yes.
which, if I do my math right, is a $17,000 increase, a 50% increase for an entry-level electric truck. And that to me is staggering, just staggering. I don't know if that's sustainable. I don't know if this is a trend that's going to continue, or maybe that they've gone a little too far and we're going to start to have to maul this back. Now, here's the good news, Andre. There is good news on the horizon. So as you know, if you guys aren't watching our other channels, we just bought a Bolt.
Yes.
A 2022 Bolt. That Bolt, Andre, cost $25,000. Sticker, $25,000 for the base Bolt.
Out the door, yes.
Out the door with 250 miles of range and about every electronic gizmo that you would want, except for heated seats and a heated steering wheel. Now, if you take that number and then you subtract the $7,500, which you get if you qualify, which most people do, federal incentive, and then you take the $2,000 Colorado incentive and add it onto it, you're looking at a $17,000 electric car. It's taken,
which is brand new.
Brand new, yeah. It's just taken 12 years, but now you can get a $17,000 electric car. And at some point, I'm hoping that comes down to trucks, where work trucks go that way instead of the way that Ford has decided. And if you want to be mind-blowing, how much is a Silverado work truck starting at?
Silverado 3WT, which is their first fleet truck they're going to be selling, starts at $74,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple more comments while we talk about price, because Boston Denny supported us with $10. Thank you, Boston Denny. Boston Denny says, having owned a Ram Limited and now a Lightning Lariat, I consider a Ram a segment leader in interior quality.
Agreed.
Why would they change their interior to save costs? So here's what I think is happening with this concept. They're not cheapening their interior. I don't see any messages that they want to do that. They showed compacted stone veneer. I think they're doing something new. They want to do something, but I don't think they're going to change their quality necessarily, and they're still going to push through. At least that's my perception.
Yeah. I mean, I'm expecting the limited version of this truck to be 100K.
Yeah, and I expect it to be luxury vehicle quality all the way. That's what I'm expecting.
Once upon, this is also a huge change. So let's just put this into perspective. The average car now costs $48,000. Average new car. Do you know what the average new truck costs? Do we have that number?
No, but it's higher probably.
It probably is higher. But once upon a time, that's why we bought Stubby, right? Our little two-door 1500 Ram, because it's classic and it was affordable. And that one was $38,000 out the door with the Pentastar V6.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that we've gone into this inflationary cycle where certainly the finances have run away from the financial cost of a truck have run away from the finances of the average truck buyer. And let's face it, I mean, we're talking about an electric truck here, so it's new technology. It's basically creating a whole new segment of trucks, right? So
right.
There's a lot of expense in that. I mean, Ram and Ford and Chevy are spending billions of dollars building
Factories.
factories for batteries, building. So that expense is going to get passed on to the consumer, and hopefully they'll then also continue building internal combustion engine trucks that are affordable. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, indeed. And I had a comment about the Chevy Bolt you brought up that we purchased at $26,000. That was the price, sticker price.
It's the cheapest electric car vehicle you could buy.
I don't think they cannot be making money.
You think they're losing money on that?
That's my perception. This is not a Chevrolet statement or a GM statement, because just look at the battery, right? What, 65-ish kilowatt hours in that Chevy Bolt? We actually built our own conversion truck, the F100 Chargezilla truck. And by the way, there's a comment here from one of you that says the best electric truck is actually the one you built.
Thank you.
So thank you. That's very kind of you, because that took a lot of work. But we have Tommy. Tommy here. Hello, Tommy.
Did he do a little drop-in?
He gave you ears.
Thank you, Tommy.
Anyways, no, actually, he just waved. Yeah. Anyways, the price of the battery on our truck was approximately, for 78 kilowatt hours, was $25,000 just for the battery itself. I know we're paying, low volume numbers, from different, refurbished companies. But how can they make money on a $25,000 car? I don't understand that.
We'll leave that to another podcast. Any more comments that people are asking?
Ibrahim from Saudi Arabia supported us. So thank you, Ibrahim. Ibrahim says that they wish they would have the Tacoma, the 4Runner, the Sequoia, and the Tundra for sale.
Yeah, dude, I can't help that.
But you know what I wish, Ibrahim? I wish I have an FJ Cruiser for sale in the U.S.
How about a Land Cruiser? Let's just start with that.
And we don't have it.
How about a Hilux, dude?
So I think we always wish the grass is always greener on the other side. So we always wish that the things were on sale the other way. So thank you for supporting us. Taker610 supported us with $2. Thank you. What can explain the return of the midgate? That's very interesting. Here's my take on this.
So Chevy has done that before.
The Avalanche,
yes,
has been there before. Tommy recently did the GMC Envoy XUV SUV that also had a little bed compartment in the back with a folding midgate.
I think there's a pretty straightforward answer to that, and that is, and I was talking to Ralph Gilles about this, the chief designer for Stellantis, and that is, with electrification, which is a horrible word, but I'll use it anyway, it allows you to rethink what a truck is, right? Because you basically can then take a clean sheet approach to designing a truck, and then instead of having to, basically improve the previous generation, you can start fresh and, rethink what everything should do and how it should do it. And this is certainly what Ram has done. Hey, do you think that those little, so the coolest thing I thought, okay, I know this is silly, but it's a la Rolls Royce, I like it. So in the wheels, the center hubs, they stay centered so you can read Ram.
They're on bearings, right?
Yeah, they're on bearings.
Yeah,
you think that'll make it into production?
I think their top level might.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be the first truck that, and like I say, I'm still kind of a head scratcher why they didn't go with the range extender, because let's face it, the two biggest Achilles heels of pickup trucks are towing and range.
Yeah, so here's first I would like to address the midgate question, and then I want to talk about the range extender a little bit more. So the midgate, so here, you guys commented on this, the cabins on trucks are getting larger. Why? Because they're becoming family vehicles, right? If we look 30, 40 years ago, there were two-door trucks, there were work vehicles.
And those are almost impossible to get now.
Yeah. So it's a paradigm shift, right? People like the utility of trucks. They're buying it for their families.
It literally is a family truckster.
Yeah, literally. So the cabins got bigger and more comfortable and quieter and more luxurious. But what about the bed space, right? It's been shrinking and shrinking and shrinking.
Those long bed trucks are hard to find.
But you can have both. Put the midgate down. If you have a tonneau cover, you can protect it from the weather, right? Put whatever you want in that truck. If you're not carrying people,
so
you can have both.
So hey, if you guys are watching this and you own one of these, please email me. I was going to say call me, but just email me at ask@TFL because I'm Czech, right? And there's a truck that I actually want to buy, and it's built by Volkswagen. It's called the Škoda Fun. Not Škoda, but Volkswagen owns Škoda.
Okay.
So you know what the Škoda Fun is?
Gosh, I know the Yeti. It's not the Yeti.
No, it's a pickup truck. So the Škoda Fun is they've taken that concept to the next level. So it's a two-door, four-passenger truck. But guess how this thing works, right? So you have a little tiny pickup truck with the typical midgate, except in the Skoda Fun, what happens is there are jump seats that fold up, and so the whole midgate slides back. Then the seats fold down, and then the roof extends. So you create basically a four-seater truck out of a two-seater truck using the bed space. And those trucks came out like 15 years ago. They only sold them, I think, in the Czech Republic. So if you're out there and you own a Skoda Fun and they're diesels, and you want to sell it, I'd love to buy it because I think they're old enough now. They were like in the 90s, so they're just starting to get old enough where actually you can import them into America. Are you seeing
I just looked it up. It looks like a Subaru Brat to me on some level.
Yeah, it looks like a Brat, except that whole back end
rear
midgate
section moves.
pulls out. You can see the pictures there, right?
Yeah.
And then there's seats that you can actually sit in.
So that's interesting.
You see the extendable roof? Isn't that crazy?
I do. Why don't they do that, Ram? Ram, look at fun.
Skoda Fun.
We have another support from Dave Murphy. Dave, thank you very much once again for supporting us. Dave says, thanks for all the wonderful content on electrification, education. Chargezilla at Happy Yak Ranch was a great video. Thank you, Dave. And I also want to thank our David from Happy Yak Ranch because his support was huge. Cutting wood, cutting trees.
I watched the video this weekend. You guys worked your butt off, man. You guys hauled a lot of wood. The funniest part of that video is you weren't sure if the brakes were going to hold going down the hill, so David attached a log to the back of the truck as kind of an outboard anchor, and then you're going down the hill and the log comes flying off the trail, so now the log is pulling the truck off the trail. That was hilarious.
My wife was watching that and she freaked out when the log rolled down the hill. She thought the whole truck is going to go.
Too, yeah. Check that out, alltfl.com.
But everybody was fine. Everything is fine.
I like your anchor.
Taker 610 says, think Nissan Qashqai e-Power. Qashqai. What did I say?
I know it's very
Cash cow.
Qashqai. It's basically the Rogue Sport here in America.
E-Power for the Ram range extender. So here's my take on the range extender.
So it's a Mitsubishi system. So Qashqai and the Mitsubishi Outlander have the same basic system. Powertrain. Yeah, it's basically like a Jeep 4xe. So it's a plug-in hybrid.
So they're saying, why not use that for Ram? Well, Ram is good question. So Ram is a chassis on frame, a body on frame vehicle. So it does have a frame. The batteries are inside the frame, and also the motors, front and rear, and the suspension components.
A two-motor system, by the way.
So all-wheel drive, four-wheel drive system, of course, and then. The range extender, like a BMW i3, could be a small gas or diesel engine, most likely gas potentially, right? Because it's quiet and small.
Cheaper.
Put it where the Ram box is. Roman, why not? So they talked about Ram boxes, right? Opening up this way and having a large space there. Why don't you open it up and put a little range extender in there?
So let's talk about the difference between like the 4xe and a range extender. So Andre we actually bought it, and Andre White drives it. You have an i3, which is a classic range extender. So it's basically a battery-powered truck with a little engine, that then charges the battery when the battery is depleted.
And the engine is not connected to the drive wheels
the problem we found with that is that, and I found this in a very graphic and scary way going up I-70 past Georgetown, where it gets very steep, is once your battery runs out and you're only using that little, in this case it's a Kimco 600cc engine to charge up the battery, I was doing 25 miles an hour, Andre. So it does not provide enough power to barely keep a car moving at 25 miles an hour, let alone highway speeds. What would happen if you actually tried to tow then?
But there's a trick to solve that.
What is that?
You start the range extender sooner. Right. So the way you were using it, because
BMW forced you to do it
which was forced because of EPA and other reasons, you could only use the range extender at 6% battery. Right. So when your battery is getting close to nothing, then the range extender kicks in.
I think it's actually 2%, isn't it?
I think it's about 6. Anyways, no matter what, and then you were having trouble maintaining that energy to move, right? But there's a European spec of the i3.
Well, it's the same spec. It's just the one we have.
It's software
locked. It's
where it allows to turn on your range extender below 75% of the battery capacity. So, and my wife's been using it for the last year, and she loves it. So, the range extender replenishes, some of that energy,
so
and you can
let's say
keep
you get the
moving.
European one and you tell the battery that you tell the car, okay, I'm going to turn on the little Kimco at 90% when the
Okay.
battery is 90%. Now it's slowly charging the battery. But I would say that if you were towing, that battery would deplete itself very quickly, even with the range extender working very hard to charge it back up, because it's not enough power in the range extender. The way that the 4xe works, which is a different system, a plug-in hybrid
Hmm.
system, is basically you have a full-size, big gasoline engine and you have a small battery, right? And then the battery can be used to drive the car, in this case, maybe 20, maybe 30, maybe 40 miles, and then eventually the big engine takes over
Right.
and powers the car. And I think in a truck that would work. I think you could have the range extender, not the range extender, the plug-in hybrid version of it, where if you wanted to zip around on the battery, you can. But when you're going across country, you still have a big, and that in that case, it wouldn't work because you couldn't put that big Pentastar or whatever it is in the Ram box.
Well, how about this? So don't like military or trains use this, where you have like a turbine, something powerful, gasoline powered, something small, compact, but powerful to generate a lot of electricity very quickly to stick inside the RAM box.
Well, here's the thing, and I think you guys probably could have guessed at this. What's happening now is there seems to be a renaissance in hydrogen. For a long time, hydrogen was thought to be the answer to this, right? You could, because it's quickly fillable like gasoline. It's clean burning, so the only thing that comes out of your tailpipe is water. And then, of course, the Japanese, the Asian companies came out with hydrogen-powered cars. Both Hyundai and Toyota came out with hydrogen-powered cars, and there were like 50 hydrogen stations built in California, and it just didn't fly. But now that we're starting to see because look, you basically have a fuel cell, right, that then is taking hydrogen and converting it to electricity, which is powering a battery, which is powering the wheels.
Mhm.
And then people are like, well, why do you even want that fuel cell when you could just have the battery? Makes sense, right? Why would you want the complication of having that fuel cell? But in a truck, it would be a pretty good solution because you can have a clean burning, powerful truck that then you can fill up with hydrogen. The problem is somebody has to build out hydrogen.
Infrastructure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I would love to see that as a solution.
Yeah, so the CEO of Stellantis at CES
Yes.
mentioned hydrogen fuel cell technologies for heavy-duty trucks. So
Very good.
they made an initial announcement. So they invested in a company called Symbio, and I believe they're French-based, but don't quote me on this. And they're going into that space, but it's still years away. But I think it makes sense for heavy-duty vehicles. Look at companies like Nikola and Toyota with their semi-trucks that are hydrogen-powered, and also Hyundai.
Yeah, so you got to build out the infrastructure, and then there are also problems with hydrogen. It does tend to explode a little bit if not properly stored. So you
Yeah.
have to have very big cells. These are like like Teflon, like
Inches thick.
inches thick.
Yeah.
And it does tend to, because it's stored at, what you want to do is compress as much hydrogen as possible, so you have to store it very cold. And then in California, what was happening was that the nozzles that they were using to fill up the hydrogen would freeze over, and then you couldn't actually fill up the nozzle because it was that cold. So there are issues. I'm sure these are technical issues that you can get past. And it was crazy expensive, dude. I mean, I want to say it was like $18 a pound. $18 or $19 a pound. When if you did the conversion to gasoline, it was through the roof.
Yeah, and also hydrogen is not super energy dense.
That's
right?
why you have to compress it
Yeah,
and keep it cold. Yeah,
So there are a couple of comments here. First of all, gasoline explodes also.
it does.
That is true.
But yeah, but hydrogen much more so.
Much more reactive.
In a much more dynamic manner.
Hydrogen is more reactive. It's the most abundant element in the universe, but it also combines with other elements in a very sometimes explosive fashion.
So gasoline does not explode. Gasoline vapor explodes.
Yes.
So you could potentially take a match and throw it in a thing of gas and it wouldn't explode. It's just when it combines with air, right? That's when it explodes.
Yes. So sorry, I'm trying to read all of your comments while also following along. So I apologize if I'm a little bit slow. So Stu says here, in regards to Ram Stubby truck, why not invite a person from the Hyper Miler group, let them do their thing, and see what kind of mileage we can get out of Stubby? Well, we know one of these guys, Wayne Gertis, is a
Yes,
hypermiler.
we know Wayne.
Um,
And by the way, we put out a video this week where Andre did this test with Nathan where he ran Stubby with the mirrors folded in and the mirrors folded up. And we found a dramatic difference. What was that number, Andre?
it was 5 mpg.
And a lot of you said that that number was so far out there that we need to retest it. And I think that's a good point. I think
That's a good
we can
point.
rerun that test again and see if we get the same thing.
You see my eyes, right? They're popping out of my head, right? I was not believing that result myself. So yeah,
we'll retest it. We'll redo it again. We'll give you what you wanted, of course.
So yeah. So one more thing I wanted to mention. Well, we kind of addressed already the range problem, right? Because a lot of comments from you guys say electric trucks don't make sense. And why? It's because, towing long distances, all those usage cases. But there are, of course, use cases where they do make sense. For example, around city, we showed that already we had a Ford e-Transit van. We showed you guys how relatively efficient it is around town. Also Lightning Pro, the F-150 Lightning Pro, the base model, because it's so lightweight comparatively speaking to other vehicles that are electric, it's also very efficient.
Any other questions before we wrap this up, Andre? That people are asking about the Ram specifically?
Yeah, the Ram. So, no, I'm not seeing a lot of others. There's a lot of people talking about high prices.
Yep.
So let's close with this.
Let's do a comparison. I think
on price as well.
We can do a comparison, but let's just do a quick comparison between the Lightning, the Silverado, and the Ram. Now that we have three main players in the electric truck, so Ford came out first, of course, and their strategy was, and I don't know if this was because they wanted to be first, but they basically said, let's just take a Ford F-150 and electrify it, make it electric. And so keep it as normal as possible. Maybe we change around the front of it a little bit to make it a little bit more aerodynamic, but we're going to make it look just like a regular F-150, function like an F-150. Only difference is that it's going to be electric. And they did do some innovative things. Darren Palmer, congratulations. You did some innovative things like the fact that they brought power on board. I think that was huge. Mm-hmm. Allowing you to both charge the truck and then run your house if you wanted to.
And now Ram is talking about that feature as well.
And Ram is, we forgot the main thing, the little robot. Why don't you talk about that?
Oh boy. They're calling it the Ram Charger.
Yeah.
So it's a machine that's almost the size of this table. Yeah. It's a gigantic Roomba, which is supposed to live in your garage or your depot.
And it drives out and conductively charges your truck and then drives back.
Yeah, it goes underneath your truck, finds the port, communicates with the truck. This thing lifts up and it charges the battery, and then it goes home.
So I think that's one of those things like a light switch. Like you can, remember the Internet of Things? You can tell the Internet of Things, turn on my lights. If it's just as easy just to go click, it's not hard to plug in. We've been doing it. You've been doing it for the last 5 years. It's not a big deal. Anyway, so let's go back to this conversation we were in Ford, right? I think what we found out from Ford, the lesson that we learned is that very popular. People were super excited, but the battery was not large enough. I think that truck is under batteried, especially the Pro version, the work truck.
And in the real world.
In the real world.
We're not looking at paper specs, right? In the real world.
And it could be partly due to the fact that it's not very aero, right? Because they didn't customize it for an electric truck. They made it, a regular F-150.
It looks like an F-150, yeah.
Yeah, but, 130 kilowatt hour battery for the extended range, which is a big battery. And we found that out when we bought it in Detroit and tried to drive it across country all the way up to Alaska. It just isn't enough, especially if you're towing. Forget about towing, even driving it across country. We spend a lot of time charging. So I think that's a lesson that Ford has learned and probably will take into the next generation. Now, of course, the Silverado EV doesn't exist yet, but it's based loosely on the Hummer EV.
Right, and we have a lot of experience with the Hummer.
And the lesson I think that we've learned from the Hummer EV is that you can have a 250 kilowatt hour battery, which is more battery, but the downside then becomes charging.
But you have real range.
You get real range.
It gives you real range.
But you spend a lot more time charging.
Right. The best experience we've ever had was at Glenwood Springs, Colorado, on I-70, where we found one of the updated Electrify America stations with some of the people working on that station. But it was like a 350 kilowatts for an extended period of time, like, 5 or 10 minutes?
Yeah, and I think that's another lesson that GM has learned, and I think that Ram took away, is that you need 800 volt architecture. You just
At least 800 volt.
at least, if not 1,000 volt architecture, which is coming, because if you want to charge up a big battery, you need to dump a lot of power into it very quickly, and you can only do that with larger and larger ampage.
And of course, I think so. RAM also sees what all the competitors have done. Also, Rivian is in the space. Rivian is a little bit smaller form factor, right? Not quite as large. There's a question here. Who said? I'm sorry, can't read your name right now. But what the question is? Why are we starting with full-size trucks with electrification? Why not start with mid-size trucks?
Because it's the most popular segment out there.
Well, that's one. I remember talking to one of the engineers on the Toyota team about the subject. Of course, so Toyota has plans for electrification, but they're not quite ready to announce everything yet. But they said something about the form factor and the battery weight and how mid-size trucks, it doesn't quite work together. So there's one, the full-size trucks are most popular, but also the form factor. If you had add a huge battery to a mid-size truck, you will have no payload. That's one of the issues there.
So you're saying full size half tons are the sweet spot?
For now, with the current battery technology.
I also think that there was a lesson that we learned from Rivian, and that is 4 motors are 2 motors too many. I think it's expensive and it doesn't actually add any value. So I
Other
think
than accelerating like no other.
Yeah, I think that there's some problems with 4 motors in terms of traction, in terms of off-roading, and I think that that's a lesson that people have learned. So I think 2 is perfect, which is what the Ram has, which is what Ford has. I think 3 is also problematic in the Hummer EV. So maybe 2 motors may be the perfect solution, and then using mechanical lockers instead of electronic lockers to get the same effect that you would get with 4 motors.
And Rivian is testing a twin motor system right now as we speak. And it's going to be in production soon, and so people can buy it.
And I think we've also learned that a camping kitchen is not practical, as much as it's cool.
Or build your own.
You could just go to Coleman and buy yourself one for like $150, and then just throw it in the truck, as opposed to actually building it into the truck for $6,000.
Yeah.
And apparently those those tan-out covers or whatever, those roller shades,
are also problematic. Yes.
They're also apparently very hard to build.
And so there you have it. And also, of course, coming up this year, we should see a production version of the Cybertruck, right? I'm not sure if Toyota is going to show a truck this year, but they might.
So Cybertruck is interesting.
Yes.
That heralds a new design language, which is, and we saw it at CES, right? So besides the Ram, they also introduced a concept Stellantis owns, Peugeot, for Peugeot. And what made that interesting was that it had these very pointy,
very angular,
which is what a Cybertruck is.
Yeah.
So everything's gotten round, and now we're kind of going back to pointy and angular, and 90-degree angles everywhere. And I think that is where the Cybertruck is. And I hope they build it, man. I'm dying to actually get behind the wheel of one, but it's been so long, I'm starting to fret.
Aaron says you guys don't talk a lot about the F-150 Power Boost. I think we have talked a lot about it because I owned one.
Yeah, go look at about the 50 videos that we did on the Power Boost.
So the F-150 hybrid, I love the technology. I love the system. I just sold it. So
anyway, there you have it, guys. Thank you for taking this time and spending it with myself and Andre. And remember, go to alltfl.com for more news, views, and of course, all truck and car reviews.
Thank you very much.
Ciao.